Hey everyone, welcome to the Math 100 Final Exam Review. In this video, I'm going to go through and solve all of the Your Turn problems in the Final Exam Review packet. So we're starting off with writing this number in words. So when converting a number into words, we're going to work on each comma-separated section at a time. I'm just going to write the answer down on the bottom here to save space. So over here we translate each group first. So the first group is just 4, so 4. And then we follow the translation of the numbers by the group name. Here we got ones, thousands, millions. So that's 4 million. Put a comma. Now we'll do the next group, 973. All right, so there's the number converted, 3-digit number, and now followed by the group name, thousands. So 973,000. And then finally, the last group, 516. So 4,973,516. Notice there's no and in this number. Never use and when translating numbers unless there's a decimal point, because that's a keyword reserved for the decimal point. Number 2, and I'm just going to go in order. I realize that your terms are not numbered. So we're going to convert this to exponential form. Now in exponential form, the bigger number is the base, and that's the number being multiplied. The number of times that number appears, which is 4 here, is the exponent. So it's 12 to the 4th power. Next up, order of operations. We're going to evaluate this. So we're going to start with parentheses. Well, there are no parentheses, so go on to the second stage, which is exponents. So evaluate this exponent first. It says 6 plus 9 times 4. All right. Next level is multiplication division. So we got a multiplication here, we'll do that. That is 6 plus 36. And then finally, addition subtraction is always last. Add those together and get 42. Next up, another order of operations problem. We're going to start inside the parentheses. That's our top level. 9 times 2 minus 6 squared divided by 7 minus 4 is 3. All right, next up, exponents. So 9 times 2 minus 6 squared is 36. Bring everything else down unchanged. Now, multiplication division, left to right. So left first, so 18 minus 36 divided by 3. All right, now we got the multiplication division, the one on the right. So that's 18 minus 36 divided by 3 is 12. And finally, subtract to get 6. Now we're going to move into some work with fractions. First thing we need to be able to do is reduce fractions. Remember, all answers must be in reduced form. So here we've got numbers in the numerator and denominator. Clearly they have a common divisor because they're both even. So let's try dividing by 2 and see what we get. Well, we get 14 over 21. And now, are we done? No, because we have a common divisor of 7. 7 divides evenly into 14 and 21. So we'll divide by 7, and we get 2/3. 2/3 is fully reduced. Could have been done in one step by dividing both top and bottom by 14. So it doesn't matter if you want to do it in one step or multiple steps. Now next one, we want to figure out which of these fractions are equal to each other. So we're going to use the fraction equality test. So we'll set 2 fractions equal to each other. Let's try the first 2. And now we can cross multiply for the test, so we get the same number when we cross multiply, then the 2 fractions are equal. So in this way we got 5 times 7. I'm going to put a question mark over this because we don't know if they're equal. And then this way we got 2 times 16. So that's 35, does not equal 32. All right, so these are not equal to each other. And we'll have to try all the different pairs. Let's try 2/7 equal to 8 over 28. Let's try these two. So cross multiply, got 2 times 28 equal to 7 times 8. Where we got 56 equals 56. So that works, and these are equal. So just keep testing pairs until you find one. They're equal, you cross multiply and you get the same number, they are equal. Next up, we're going to multiply fractions now. Now when we multiply fractions, you multiply straight across, numerator by numerator, denominator by denominator. But it's often easier to do this if we simplify first. And just keep in mind, you can simplify across fractions. So think of these two as being 6 divided by 12, the fraction 6/12. Well, that reduces to 1/2 if we divide both the top and bottom by 6. And here we got 5 over 15, that reduces to 1/3. And then finally multiply straight across, 1 times 1 is 1 on the top, 3 times 2 is 6 on the bottom. So 1/6 for that one. So clearly a lot easier if we simplify first. So if we don't, we're going to have a huge fraction here to simplify. Next up, number 8, here we're dividing fractions. First thing we're going to do when we divide fractions is convert to multiplication. First fraction stays the same. The second fraction flips over, and it's a reciprocal. So we got 2/3 times 9/8. And now we can do what we did here, which is simplify across fractions. So 2 over 8 reduces to 1 over 4. And 9 over 3 reduces to 3 over 1. Multiply straight across and we get 3/4. All right. Next up is adding and subtracting fractions. So to do this, we need a common denominator. So let's find the least common multiple of 4 and 6. So the multiples of 4 are 4, 8, and 12. And for 6, we got 6 and 12. 12 gives us the least common multiple of 4 and 6, and that's going to be our common denominator. Now, that means we're going to need to multiply these two fractions. And to find the number we're going to multiply by, let's count over. All right, for 4 in the denominator, we'll go 1, 2, that's the 12 is the third multiple of 4. So that means we need to multiply this one by 3 over 3. And over here we can count over 1, 2. 12 is the second multiple of 2. So we'll multiply this fraction by 2 over 2. And that will give us the common denominator of 12. So 3 times 5, we got 15 on top, 15/12, minus 5 times 2 is 10. And now that we have a common denominator, now we can subtract. Now when we subtract, the denominator does not change because the denominator tells us the type of thing we're adding or subtracting. And that doesn't change when we add or subtract. If I take 3 basketballs plus 5 basketballs, I get 8 basketballs. I don't get 8 volleyballs. We're not changing what we're adding or subtracting. So 12 stays the same, subtract across the top, and the answer is 5/12. I'm moving on to chapter number 3. We're going to talk about some decimals. And we're going to write the word name for a decimal. And the decimal is 2.9435. Right, here's where that keyword "and" is going to come into play. So let's first write everything to the left of the decimal as its word name. So just 2 there. The decimal point, that's where the "and" comes in. So 2 and 2 for the 2 and then the decimal point. And now we're going to convert this entire number into its name. 209,000. 435. And then we need to follow this by the name of the place that the last digit sits in. So we've got tenths, hundreds, thousandths, 10,000ths. The last digit is in the 10,000ths place. So finish up with that place name. 2 and 9,435 10,000ths. Make sure that place name ends in THS. And so for your turn, starting to the left of the decimal, 7, decimal points and 296, all right, that whole number written out. And now we need to find the place, tenths, hundreds, thousandths. Seven and 296 thousandths. Next up, fractions to decimals. 14 and 32 over 100. So we want to change this thing to a decimal. Now, the whole number, that's always just going to be the number that's going to be to the left of the decimal. So write that as this number and then the decimal point. Now we want to write this as a decimal. Now, the denominator tells us what the last digit's going to be. That's going to be in the hundredths place. So we got a tenths place and we have a hundredths place. So look to the denominator to show us where that last digit is going to be. Now we write 32 such that the last digit is here. So that is 14.32. All right, now we're going to change decimal to a fraction, 28.71. So just like we're going to convert back to a mixed number. So 28 is to the left, that's going to be the whole number in the mixed number. And then 71, the last digit is in the hundredths place. So 100 goes on the bottom and 71 goes on top. 28 and 71 100ths. All right, is to as format. Moving on to proportions now. Five is to 12 as 15 is to 36. Okay, is to can be read as the divisor line, so 5 divided by 12. As is the equal sign, and then 15 is to 36. 15 over 36. There's the proportion. Now we also need to be able to write proportions from descriptions and words. So what we have a map, and 1 inch represents 4 miles, so that's the scale. Now those two values go together in a rate. make sure you include the units when writing proportions from descriptions, from real-world descriptions. So our first rate is going to be the two related quantities. 1 inch represents 4 miles. And then we also have two other related quantities. We have 3 inches. Now, I have to put the 3 inches on top because the inches are on top over here. Put it down here, it's going to be incorrect. And 3 inches represents 12 miles. So both miles are on the bottom. And finally, we have the proportion 1 inch over 4 miles equals 3 inches over 12 miles. Now, some proportions are going to need to be solved. "12 over 4 equals 15 over n." So we can solve these by cross multiplying. We'll multiply numerator by denominator and numerator by denominator across fractions. Right? So n times 12 or 12n. And then we'll set those two products equal to each other. And 4 times 15. Now we're going to solve for n. So 12n equals, let's multiply this out, we get 60. And then since we're multiplying n times 12 and we want to get n by itself, we need to get rid of the 12 by dividing it out. Remember, always do the opposite operation from what's there. So now the 12's cancel, leaving just n on the left, and n equals 5. So 12 over 4 equals 15 over 5. All right, moving on to chapter number 5, we're going to start by changing a percent to a decimal. So the procedure there, drop the percent sign, make sure you get rid of that, because our result will no longer be a percent. And then move the decimal 2 places to the left. All right, so we're going to convert 142%, 26%, 8%, and 0.4%, so 0.4%. All right, so the decimal starts to the right of the rightmost digit, and we'll move it 2 places to the left and get 1.42. And make sure we're going to drop the percent sign, so no percent sign over here. All right, here we'll move 2 to the left to get 0.26. Here we'll move 1 to the left, and then we need to move 1 more. That gives us a 0 there, so 0.08. And then here, if we move 2 to the left, that's going to give us 1 0, 2 zeros, so 0.004. 0.004. All right, decimals 2%. Converting these to percents, anything over 1 is going to be over 100%. Move these to the right, we get 426, and then make sure you add that percent sign. Here we move 2 to the right and get 12, so 12%. Here we'll move 2 to the right and get 7%. Here we move 2 to the right and the decimal lands between the 3 and the 8, so there's 3.8%. Next up, we're going to write percents as fractions. Now percent, the word means out of 100. So we can take these percents and just write them as a fraction over 100. This is just the definition of what a percent is. Now we can reduce this fraction then, since we have two even numbers. Divide by 2 and divide by 2. That gives us 7 over 50. All right, 4%. That'll be 4 over 100. And now we can divide by both the top and bottom by 4. And get 1 over 25. Next up, 128%. Still over 100. It's okay, that's a bigger number on top. And now we can divide. What should we divide by here? Well, let's take it one step at a time. Divide the top and bottom by 2. We get 64 over 50. And we'll divide again and get 32 over 25. And finally, 0.7%. Now these are a little tricky because we got this 0.7 on top. We want to get a whole number, so after this time, instead of dividing, we're going to multiply both the top and bottom by 10. That'll move this decimal 1 to the right, giving us a whole number. So that is 7 over 1,000. And now we're going to change fractions to percents. Now with these, all we have to do, there should be 2 steps. First step is just to use your calculator and get a decimal number. So let's divide these out. Calculator split out a decimal. We get 0.26 with a repeating 6. Now 2 over 849 gives us 0.0023. And for 156 over 27 we get 5.7 with a 7 repeating. Now the next step then, we'll eventually want to get to a percent. So now we're going to take this decimal point, move it 2 to the right. And since it's a repeating decimal, I guess I'll just round to a tenth and say 26.7%. All right, now this one, we'll move the decimal 2 to the right and get 0.23. So this is 0.23%. All right, convert this one to a percent, move this 2 to the right. There's 1, 2 will give us a 0 there, so that's 5, 7, and the 7's keep repeating, so we'll just write it like that. 577.8%. Now next up, we're going to be given sentences. We're going to translate them into equations and solve. Fortunately, in the instructions here, I didn't say solve, but we'll just go ahead and solve them. All right, part A. What percent of 49 is 6? All right, so to translate, what translates into the variable, or what percent, I should say, what percent P, so we'll say P is going to be our percent, of this multiplication. So P times 49 translates into the equal sign in 6. So there's our equation. P times 49 equals 6. So to solve, we can divide both sides by 49 to get some percent. Yeah, I guess we'll stick to the instructions here. Just translate. Okay, so part B, 23% of what is All right, 23%. When we translate that, we're going to translate that into a decimal, because when we do calculations, we have to have that decimal number. So 23% converts into 0.23 of its multiplication. What is the variable? We don't know it, so it's a variable. Is the equal sign, and 5. So 0.23 times n equals 5. And just like up here, if we want to solve it, we divide both sides by 0.23. Part C, 70 is what percent of 135? All right, translating. 70 is the equal sign. What percent? Variable of its multiplication? 135. All right, then to solve, divide both sides by 135. And then convert that decimal to a percent. All right, part D. What is 32% of 78? Okay, what's the variable? Is the equal sign, 32%, 0.32 of its multiplication, and 78. So this one, all I have to do is multiply those and we get n. And that brings us to chapter 6, converting units. So the only conversion factors that can be used are the ones from the tables. So first up, we're going to convert 328 inches into feet. So take our starting units. Make sure you include units in all fractions and write it over 1. Right now we need a conversion that goes from inches to feet. So let's look through the tables. And notice at length, we got 12 inches equals 1 foot. So we can either write 12 inches over 1 foot, or we could write 1 foot over 12 inches. So which one of these are we going to use? Well, we have inches on top here, so we have to have inches on the bottom here so that the inches cancel. We do not want inches in our answer. We want to eliminate those. We want feet in our answer. So 1 foot and 12 inches on the bottom. Now the inches on top, inches on the bottom cancel. The only units remaining are feet, and that's what we want. Now we're going to multiply straight across. So we get 328. 1 times 12 is 12. Divide those out. And that gives us 27.3 feet. Make sure you include the units in your answer. When it comes to these, whenever you write a number, write the units. Except here. All right, now we're going to convert between metric units. So we're going to use the metric prefix chart, responsible for kilo through milli. When we're going to convert 0.4982 decameters into decimeters. Now deca is just to the left of the base unit. Deci is just to the right of the base unit. Notice we have to take 2 steps to get from deca to deci. That means that's how many places we're going to move the decimal point. Now we move to the right, Into the smaller units, that means we have to move the decimal to the right. So move it 2 places to between the 9 and the 8. So that gives us 49.82 decimeters. And we can also convert between metric and American units. So let's do 5.48 miles to kilometers. All right, take our starting unit, put it over 1. Now we need to find in our tables a conversion between miles and kilometers. If you look on the table, units of length, top entry is 1 mile equals 1.61 kilometers. All right, now I can write this either way. I'm going to write it with miles on the bottom so that it cancels with miles on the top here. And that leaves us with kilometers, which is the units we want. Multiplying straight across, that gives us 8.8 kilometers. And that wraps up the final exam review. Good luck, everyone.